Okay, buckle up. This one, this one's personal. And it's been gnawing at me, a low-grade fever in the back of my skull, for longer than I care to admit. My name's Sarah Vance, FBI, and I'm about to dive headfirst into the black hole that swallowed Agent Michael Stewart whole back in 1990. You might have heard whispers, the vanishing agent of Cedar Falls. Sounds like some cheesy true crime podcast title, right? Trust me, it's anything but. Cedar Falls, Colorado. Picture it. Postcard mountains, crisp air smelling of pine and something vaguely metallic, and a main street frozen somewhere between the 50s and sheer inertia. Pretty, in a brittle sort of way. That's where Mike vanished. Poof. Gone. After 4 years chasing shadows in the Whisper Creek murders. For victims, all found near that damnably pretty creek just outside town. No obvious connection, no clear motive. Just ended. Strangled, but gently, almost respectfully, if murder can ever be that. Each had a single, perfectly smooth river stone placed on their chest. Creepy as hell. Mike was obsessed. Became the expert, the face of the investigation. He'd talk about Cedar Falls like it was a puzzle box welded shut. Said the town had secrets buried deeper than its foundations. He'd get this look, distant, intense, like he was listening to whispers the rest of US couldn't hear. Flashback, November 2nd, 1990, 2 days before disappearance. The diner coffee tasted like burnt tires. Mike stirred it absently, his eyes fixed on the snow starting to dust the mountains visible through the grimy window. He looked exhausted, shadows like bruises under his eyes. Sarah, he'd rasped, leaning in, his voice barely above the clatter of plates. It's the eyes. Everyone here, they look at you, but they don't see you. Like they're waiting for something. Or hiding from it. He tapped a thin file. The latest victim, a young librarian named Eleanor Shaw. She knew something. Found something. I can feel it. He'd slammed his fist softly on the formica, making the sugar shaker jump. It's here. The answer's right here, in this godforsaken town. Then, November 4th, 1990. Mike left his cramped motel room near dawn, telling his partner he was heading to re-interview Old Man Henderson, who lived in a ramshackle place near the original murder sites. Said he had a new angle. He never came back. His bureau-issue sedan was found parked neatly near Henderson's overgrown driveway. Keys in the ignition. Coffee thermos, half full, lukewarm, on the passenger seat. His service weapon locked securely in the trunk. No sign of a struggle. Just gone. Like the mist burning off the creek. The investigation into his disappearance was massive, frantic. Turned Cedar Falls upside down. Dragged Whisper Creek. Nothing. Henderson? Claimed Mike never showed. Alibi shaky, but nothing concrete. Other persons of interest. The stoic Sheriff Briggs, who always seemed a little too eager to call it a tragic accident or a walk away. The wealthy, reclusive landowner Arthur Croft, who owned half the land near the creek and hated feds poking around. The town's eccentric historian, Ms. Gable, who knew every dark corner of Cedar Falls lore. They all had stories. They all seemed off, nervous, or too calm. But no evidence linked anyone directly to Mike's disappearance. The case froze solid, colder than a Colorado winter. For 35 years, Stewart was a ghost haunting the Bureau, a cautionary tale whispered in Quantico halls. A gaping wound for his family. A personal failure I inherited the moment I opened his dusty case file last year. Mike wasn't just a name, he was my instructor once. Sharp, fair, had this dry wit that cut through the bullshit. Seeing his picture in the file, vibrant and alive, knowing he just ceased, it never sat right. Never. Present day, July 30th, 2025. Then came the call this morning. Cedar Falls PD, breathless. They were demolishing Old Man Henderson's place, finally condemned after he died last year. In the dank, dirt-floored basement, buried under a collapsed shelf behind rotted burlap sacks, they found it. Michael Stewart's FBI badge. My hand tightened on the phone until the plastic creaked. It wasn't just found. It was hidden, deliberately, and it wasn't clean. The young deputy's voice crackled over the line. Agent Vance? It's got what looks like dried blood on it, ma'am. Crusted in the grooves. The air vanished from my lungs. 35 years of silence shattered by a circle of metal and tarnish and old blood. The fever in my skull spiked. Mike hadn't walked away. He hadn't fallen in the creek. He'd been in Henderson's basement. And Henderson lied. The whispers of Cedar Falls just got a whole lot louder. And the ghosts? They're wide awake. I'm heading back to that pretty, brittle town. Someone buried more than a badge down there. Time to dig it all up. The drive to Cedar Falls felt less like a journey and more like a descent. Each mile deeper into the Colorado mountains tightened the knot in my stomach. Pine trees blurred into a dark green wall. The air grew thinner and colder, carrying that same faint metallic tang Mike had mentioned. Iron? Copper? Or just the smell of buried things finally rusting through? 35 years. A lifetime. And now, because some wrecking crew stumbled over a piece of metal in a collapsing basement, I was heading back into the belly of the beast Mike never escaped. Present day, Cedar Falls Police Department, later that afternoon. The Cedar Falls PD was exactly how Mike described it. Functional, slightly dated, and permeated with the quiet tension of a place holding its breath. Deputy Miller, the one who'd called me, met me at the entrance. Young, earnest, eyes wide with a mix of nerves and the adrenaline of finding something big. Too big for Cedar Falls. Agent Vance. Deputy Miller, he stammered, offering a hand that felt slightly damp. We've got it secured. In the evidence locker. And we've cordoned off Henderson's place. Though, honestly, there's not much to cordon off anymore. Demo crew hit the basement wall, whole shelf came down. That's when it tumbled out. He led me through the small bullpen. Heads turned, conversations hushed. The air thickened. They know, I thought. The whole damn town knows what was found. The evidence locker was a glorified closet. Miller fumbled with keys, his hands trembling slightly. He pulled out a clear evidence bag and placed it carefully on the counter under the harsh fluorescent light. Michael Stewart's badge. Seeing it in person was a physical blow. The familiar eagle, the scales of justice, the worn leather backing. It was real. Horribly, irrevocably real. Time had tarnished the metal, dulling the gold finish, but it hadn't erased the stark, dark brown stains crusted deep into the grooves of the eagle's wings and the lettering. Dried blood. A lot of it. My throat constricted. This wasn't lost. This was hidden. Where exactly? My voice sounded rough, alien. Back corner of the basement. Miller said, pointing vaguely as if I could see it. Buried under a pile of rotted burlap sacks that had fallen behind this collapsed wooden shelf unit. Looked like it had been shoved back there, then covered up. Not just dropped. He swallowed. It was deliberate. Deliberate. The word hung heavy. Henderson lied. To our faces for 35 years. While my fingers hovered over the plastic, tracing the outline of the bloodstains. What happened down there? Was it quick? Did he fight? The image of Mike, sharp, witty, alive Mike, lying broken in that dank, dark hole while Henderson, or someone else, calmly hid the evidence. Rage, cold and sharp, pricked behind my eyes. Betrayal wasn't just a word. It was the taste of that cheap diner coffee Mike drank, the phantom scent of his old leather jacket, now mixed with the coppery reek of this damned badge. Flashback, November 3rd, 1990, one day before disappearance. Mike's voice crackled over the phone line, a rare edge of excitement cutting through the exhaustion. Sarah, listen. Eleanor Shaw, the librarian, she wasn't just random. She was cataloging old town records donated by Croft's family. Found discrepancies. Land deeds near Whisper Creek going back decades. Transactions that didn't add up. And get this, she mentioned something about the stones. Not just the ones left on the victims. She found rubbings, old ones, in a ledger. Symbols. He paused, breathless. I think it's a map, Sarah? Or a ritual boundary. Henderson's shack is right on the edge of the oldest marked plot. I'm going back there tomorrow. First light. Gotta rattle his cage, see what shakes loose. I remember the chill that went down my spine, unrelated to the November cold. Mike, be careful. That old man gives me the creeps. He'd chuckled, dry and humorless. Whole town gives me the creeps, kid. But the stones, they're the key. I can feel it. Kid. He called me kid. Now, holding the proof he'd been right, and that it got him killed, the term felt like a shard of glass. Take me to the house, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. The badge was evidence, but the basement was the crime scene. My crime scene. 35 years cold, but screaming now. Present day, Henderson's property, 30 minutes later. Henderson's place wasn't a house. It was a ruin waiting to happen. Perched on the edge of Whisper Creek's treeline, it sagged under decades of neglect. The demo crew had already started on the upper floors, leaving jagged wounds in the siding. Yellow police tape fluttered like sickly flags around the perimeter. The air here was different, colder, damper, thick with the smell of decay, wet earth, and the faint, sweet sick odor of rotting wood. And underneath it all, the constant, low murmur of Whisper Creek. It didn't sound peaceful. It sounded like whispering. Miller led me around back to the cellar doors, heavy, warped wood, half buried in overgrown weeds. They hung open now, revealing a dark maw descending into the hillside. A generator hummed, powering a single work light strung down the stairs, casting long, dancing shadows. The basement was exactly what you'd expect. Low-ceilinged, dirt floor, oppressive. Cold seeped through my jacket. The air was thick with dust motes dancing in the harsh light beam. Debris was everywhere. Chunks of plaster, broken wood from the collapsed shelf unit, scattered burlap sacks reduced to filthy rags. The demo crew had stopped work, leaving an eerie stillness. Miller pointed to the far corner. There, that's where the shelf was. The burlap was piled behind it, against the foundation wall. I moved carefully, my boots crunching on the uneven dirt. The corner was a mess of splintered wood and damp, rotting fabric. I crouched, shining my flashlight beam into the crevice where the foundation met the dirt. It was a tight space, dark, easily overlooked. Perfect for hiding something you never wanted found. I imagined the badge, perhaps wrapped hastily in a piece of burlap, shoved deep into that cold, dark pocket of earth. Hidden while my light beam caught something else, half buried near where the badge was found. A small, smooth river stone. Perfectly ordinary, perfectly chilling, just like the ones left on the victims' chests. A wave of dizziness hit me, the weight of the badge in my pocket, encased in its evidence bag, but its presence burned. The cold, the smell, the oppressive silence broken only by the creek's whisper and my own pounding heart. This hole in the ground was where Mike's investigation ended. Where he ended. Betrayed. Buried. Forgotten. Until now. The rage crystallized into something colder, harder. Resolution. Henderson was dead. But someone else knew. Someone in this pretty, brittle, whispering town had blood on their hands. And I was going to find them. For Mike. I stood up, brushing dirt from my knees. Seal this entire basement, I told Miller, my voice echoing slightly in the damp space. Nothing else gets touched. And deputy? Give me the files on everyone Henderson associated with, especially in the weeks after Stewart vanished, and find out who knew he was going to Henderson's that morning. Miller nodded, scribbling frantically. The easy part, finding the badge, was over. The hard part? Making Cedar Falls give up its ghosts. And judging by the way the shadows seemed to cling just a little too tightly to the corners, the ghosts weren't going quietly. The town was holding its breath. I intended to make it scream. The sterile chill of the Cedar Falls PD evidence room was a welcome relief after the grave damp of Henderson's basement, but it didn't last. The badge, now officially logged as evidence, sat under a harsh examination lamp like an artifact from a war zone. The blood, dark, flaking, settled deep in the metal's grooves, felt like an accusation. My hands, steady now in latex gloves, photographed it from every angle. The weight was immense. This wasn't just evidence. It was the echo of a scream silenced 35 years ago. Deputy Miller hovered, shifting his weight. Sent the blood scrapings to the state lab, Agent Vance. Priority rush. Should have preliminary typing in 24 to 48 hours. DNA? Well, that'll take longer. Longer than I wanted. But even blood type could be a start. Was it Mike's? Or someone else's? The thought was a fresh jolt. What if Mike fought back? Henderson's associates? I prompted, peeling off the gloves. The scent of latex and dust clung. Miller handed over a thin file. Not much, ma'am. He was a hermit. Cranky. Kept to himself mostly. Did odd jobs years back, handyman stuff. Worked occasionally for Arthur Croft, maintaining some of the outbuildings on his estate near the creek. And he had a weekly tab at Gable's Antiques and Curios. Paid it off every month like clockwork. Croft and Gable. Two names from Mike's original suspect list. Croft, the landowner who hated federal intrusion. Ms. Gable, the historian who knew where all the bodies were metaphorically buried. And Henderson, the liar, connected to both. Coincidence? In Cedar Falls? Doubtful. Present day, Gable's Antiques and Curios. The bell above the door tinkled with a sound like brittle bones. Gables was a claustrophobic cave of dusty relics, moth-eaten tapestries, and the overwhelming scent of old paper and decay. Agnes Gable emerged from behind a towering stack of ledgers. She hadn't aged so much as desiccated. Thin, sharp-featured, eyes like polished obsidian behind thick glasses. She wore a high-necked lace blouse despite the July heat. "Agent Vance," she stated, not asked. Her voice was dry parchment. "I heard about the discovery. Tragic. After all this time." There was no warmth in the word tragic, only a detached observation. "Ms. Gable, you knew Thomas Henderson?" I kept it conversational, leaning casually against a glass case filled with tarnished silver. "Knew of him," she corrected precisely. "Cedar Falls is small. He patronized my establishment, paid his debts. A quiet man." Her eyes flickered to a display of polished river stones, each labeled with a location along Whisper Creek. A chill snaked down my spine. "He bought things here." I gestured around. "Occasional tools, lamp oil, sometimes curiosities." She tapped a gnarled finger on the glass above the stones. "He had an interest in local geology, particularly the smooth stones from the creek bend near Croft's west boundary. Found them. Calming," he said. "The exact type left on the victims. On Eleanor Shaw. The key Mike thought he'd found." Flashback. Mike's notes, circa 1988. Scrawled in Mike's tight handwriting. Gable knows more than she lets on. Claims the creek stones tradition is old folklore. Markers for safe passage, blessings. But Croft family records she found mention land disputes settled violently near those same bends in the 1890s. Coincidence? Or is the folklore a cover for something darker? Gable protects the town's history, or its secrets. "Did Henderson ever mention Agent Stewart?" I asked, watching her closely. A flicker, almost imperceptible, a tightening around her eyes before the obsidian gaze steadied. "The missing agent? No. Why would he?" "Henderson kept to himself," as I said. Too quick, too dismissive. "Now, if you'll excuse me, Agent Vance, I have an inventory to complete." The dismissal was cold, final. She retreated into her forest of paper and dust. She hadn't asked a single question about the badge. Too uninterested. Present day. Croft Estate gates, later afternoon. Arthur Croft didn't make me wait in his driveway. He made me wait outside the imposing wrought iron gates guarding his sprawling estate. Security cameras swiveled silently. The manicured lawn stretched towards a mock Tudor monstrosity overlooking Whisper Creek. Power, isolation, control. Croft embodied all three when he finally appeared, not at the gate, but on a monitor mounted beside it. His face, lean and patrician, digitally crisp but etched with deep lines of displeasure. "Agent Vance." His voice crackled through the speaker, devoid of welcome. "I trust this is urgent. I've already spoken to the police today regarding that unpleasantness at Henderson's hovel." "It is urgent, Mr. Croft. Henderson worked for you. We found Agent Stewart's badge hidden on his property, with blood on it." A pause. Not shock. Calculation. Henderson was an unreliable drunkard who occasionally fixed fences. Whatever he did, or didn't do, in 1990 is hardly my concern. Or my responsibility. His gaze through the screen was icy. "Agent Stewart was trespassing frequently on my land near the creek, you know. Stirring up trouble. Disturbing things best left buried. His obsession became problematic." "Problematic enough to disappear?" I challenged. Croft's lip curled slightly. "I suggest you focus your efforts on the derelicts and liars of this town, Agent Vance, not on law-abiding citizens protecting their property and privacy. The past should stay buried. For everyone's sake." The screen went black. Not a denial. A warning. Disturbing things best left buried. Present day, Cedar Falls Diner, evening. The same diner where Mike drank his burnt coffee. Same sticky booths, same faded decor. The air felt thick with decades of overheard conversations and secrets. I nursed a coffee, still tasted like tires, and reviewed notes. Miller sat opposite, looking shell-shocked. "Croft basically threatened you," he mumbled. "Implied." I corrected, though the chill from the gate encounter lingered. But Henderson's connection to both him and Gable, and the stones, I tapped Mike's notes about the land deeds Eleanor Shaw found. Croft stands to lose a lot if old, fraudulent land grabs come to light. especially land near a creek suddenly valuable for other reasons. Rumors of mineral surveys floated around Croft's holdings. Miller leaned in. I pulled Henderson's phone records. Sparse. But there was a call to the sheriff's private line the afternoon after Agent Stewart vanished. Lasted 2 minutes. Sheriff Briggs, the third name on Mike's list. The man who'd been so eager to close the book on Mike's disappearance. My phone buzzed. The state lab. My pulse spiked. Vance. Agent. Preliminary on the blood from the badge. The technician's voice was crisp. Type AB negative. I froze. Mike's blood type was in his file. O positive. Common. AB negative? Rare. Less than 1% of the population. You're sure? My voice was tight. Confirmed. AB negative. Not Agent Stewart's. The diner noise faded. The blood on Mike's badge wasn't Mike's. The implications crashed over me. Henderson's? Had Mike fought his attacker? Or was someone else bleeding in that basement? Someone Henderson knew? Someone who knew Mike was coming? The betrayal felt deeper, more tangled. Mike wasn't just killed. He was set up. His badge planted, hidden to implicate Henderson or to divert attention. And Henderson took that secret to his grave, or did he? That call to Briggs. I looked out the diner window. Twilight was deepening, painting the mountains purple. Cedar Falls' pretty streets looked shadowed, watchful. Across the street, leaning against a lamppost, was a figure. Tall, broad-shouldered. Sheriff Briggs. Staring directly at me. He didn't wave. He didn't move. He just watched. The message was clear. I know you know. The badge wasn't just evidence. It was bait. And the predators of Cedar Falls were circling. The blood wasn't Mike's. The lie was bigger than Henderson. Someone in this town wasn't just hiding the past. They were still protecting it. And they knew I was getting close. The coffee turned to acid in my stomach. Sheriff Briggs' stare through the diner window wasn't just observation. It was a challenge. A declaration. Game on, federal. The AB negative blood screamed that Henderson's basement wasn't just Mike's tomb. It was the scene of a struggle, maybe even a second victim, or at least a wounded accomplice. And Briggs had taken a call from Henderson the day after Mike vanished. Coincidence? In Cedar Falls? Not a chance. Miller followed my gaze, paling. Oh hell, that's him. Stay here, I said, sliding out of the booth. The weight of my service weapon under my jacket was suddenly very real. The bell jingled again, a jarringly cheerful sound as I stepped into the cooling twilight. The mountain air felt sharp, charged. Briggs hadn't moved. He leaned against the lamppost, arms crossed over his broad chest. His uniform was crisp, his face a landscape of weathered lines and hard eyes that held no warmth, only a cold assessment. He looked like the mountains themselves, immovable, ancient, and potentially treacherous. Sheriff Briggs, I said, stopping a few feet away. My voice was steady, projecting across the quiet street. Convenient timing. Small town, Agent Vance. News travels fast. His voice was a gravelly rumble, especially when federal agents start digging up old graves. He pushed off the lamppost, taking a step closer. He was taller than me, broader, radiating an authority built over decades. Henderson was a miserable old coot. Probably hid that badge himself after finding it, scared it'd implicate him. Case closed. Why stir the pot? Flashback. Mike's notes. Sheriff Briggs interview transcript. 1989. Briggs, voice tight, defensive, look, Agent Stewart, we handle our own. These murders, tragic, sure. But bringing in the feds, the media circus, it's tearing this town apart. We don't need outsiders muddying the waters. Mike, for people are dead, Sheriff. Eleanor Shaw knew something. She was scared. Briggs, scared of shadows. Old Henderson spooked her with his rambling about creek stones and curses. Nonsense. We've got drifters, troubled kids. It's not some grand conspiracy. Mike, is that why you blocked my request for Croft's land survey records? Briggs, respecting property rights, Agent. Something you city types seem to forget. The memory fueled me. Case closed. I echoed, my tone hardening. AB negative blood on Stewart's badge, Sheriff. Found hidden in Henderson's basement. Not Stewart's blood. Whose was it? Henderson's? Did Mike fight back? Or was someone else bleeding down there? For the first time, a flicker of something besides stone-faced control crossed Briggs' features. Surprise? Alarm? It was gone in a heartbeat, replaced by a deeper scowl. AB neg? Lab confirmed that. Fast work. He didn't deny knowing the significance. Could be anyone's. Drifter. Animal Henderson butchered. Means nothing. It means Stewart didn't just vanish, Sheriff. It means violence. It means evidence was concealed. For 35 years. I took a step forward, closing the distance. The air crackled. And it means Henderson called you the day after Stewart disappeared. Private line. 2 minutes. What did he say, Sheriff? What did the man whose basement hid a bloody FBI badge tell the sheriff? Briggs' jaw clenched. His eyes, pale blue and icy, locked onto mine. The genial facade was completely gone now, revealing the bedrock of suspicion Mike had always sensed beneath it. Henderson was drunk, rambling about seeing lights near the creek the night Stewart vanished. Nonsense. I told him to sleep it off. His voice was low, dangerous. That's it. And you didn't think that was worth following up? Even after Stewart disappeared? The disbelief was thick in my voice. Betrayal wasn't just Henderson lying. It was the man sworn to uphold the law deliberately looking away. Protecting the town? Or protecting something, someone else? I followed every credible lead, Agent Vance. Briggs snapped, his composure cracking. Henderson wasn't credible. He was a liability. Always was. He spat the last word. This town has suffered enough. Stewart's obsession poisoned it. You're digging now? It's just stirring up pain for no good reason. That badge could have been planted yesterday for all you know. The blatant dismissal, the attempt to undermine the evidence itself, ignited the cold rage simmering since I first saw the badge. Planted? By who? Henderson's been dead a year. Are you accusing me, Sheriff? Or maybe Croft? Or Ms. Gable? I threw the names out like grenades, watching his reaction. His eyes narrowed to slits. I'm telling you to be careful, Agent Vance. Cedar Falls has a long memory. And some things buried here, they bite back when you disturb them. The threat was unmistakable, wrapped in folksy menace. Let the past lie. For your sake. And for the sake of anyone you care about back home. His gaze flickered past me, towards the diner window where Miller sat watching, wide-eyed. A chill that had nothing to do with the mountain air seeped into my bones. He wasn't just warning me off the case. He was threatening Miller. Threatening me. The badge in the evidence locker felt heavier than ever. This wasn't just about solving Mike's disappearance anymore. It was about survival. About confronting a rot that had festered at the heart of Cedar Falls for decades, protected by the very man wearing the star. Is that a threat, Sheriff? My hand rested casually near my hip, close to my weapon. My voice was dangerously calm. Briggs leaned in slightly, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. It's friendly advice, Agent. From someone who knows this town. You found a badge. Sad. But it doesn't change the fact Stewart's gone. Probably walked into the creek, confused by his own obsession. Let it rest. Or the whispers of Whisper Creek won't be the only thing you hear in the dark. He straightened up, his official mask slamming back into place, though the cold fury still burned in his eyes. Have a good evening, Agent Vance. Try not to get lost. He turned and walked away, his boots echoing on the pavement with a finality that felt like a slammed door. The street felt suddenly darker, emptier, the shadows deeper. The friendly facade of Cedar Falls was gone, ripped away to reveal the ugly, watchful truth beneath. Briggs wasn't just a suspect, he was actively hostile. Complicit. And he knew the blood wasn't Mike's. Miller burst out of the diner, looking shaken. What the hell was that? He threatened you. He confirmed it, I said, watching Briggs disappear around a corner. He's dirty. Deeply dirty. That phone call. Henderson wasn't rambling about lights. He was reporting something. Maybe panicking. Briggs shut him down. I turned to Miller. We need that AB negative match. Now. Cross-reference Cedar Falls residents, past and present, medical records if you can find a legal angle, known associates of Henderson, Croft, Gable, Briggs himself. Anyone with a connection. And Miller? Yeah. Watch your back. This just got real. Briggs meant that threat. The emotional impact was a physical pressure in my chest. Mike hadn't just been betrayed by a killer. He'd been betrayed by the system, by the man meant to help him. The weight of his trust, his mentorship, felt like a crushing responsibility. Solving this wasn't just duty. It was vengeance for a good man abandoned. And Briggs? He'd just moved to the top of the suspect list. The whispers of the creek seemed louder in the settling dark. But now, there was another sound underneath them. The low thrum of danger, and the hard, cold resolve forming in its wake. Briggs wanted the past buried. Tough. I had a shovel, and I wasn't stopping until I hit bone. Sleep was a luxury Cedar Falls wasn't offering. The image of Briggs' cold stare and the phantom coppery scent of the badge haunted the cramped motel room. Mike's face from old training photos superimposed itself over the cheap floral wallpaper. The sharp intelligence, the dry humor, now forever frozen in time, betrayed by the very people meant to uphold the law he served. The rage was a live wire, humming beneath my skin. Briggs wasn't just obstructing, he was involved. His threat hung in the air, thicker than the mountain fog rolling in outside. Present day, Cedar Falls PD, next morning. Miller looked like he hadn't slept either, but there was a new, grim determination in his eyes. The sheriff's threat had backfired. It had lit a fire under the young deputy. Okay, AB negative, he started, spreading printouts on a cluttered desk. Rare. Less than 1%. Cedar Falls' population in 1990 was around 3,200. Statistically, maybe 30 people max had that type back then. Finding specific medical records from 35 years ago, like finding a needle in a haystack dipped in concrete. Then we melt the concrete, I said, leaning over the list he'd compiled from old town directories and partial medical databases he'd accessed through state channels. Focus on connections. Henderson's known associates. Croft employees. People Briggs interacted with regularly. Gable's clientele. My finger traced names. And Briggs himself? What's his blood type? Miller shook his head. Not in any easily accessible record. Sheriff's medical is private. But he pulled another sheet. Look at the names. Arthur Croft? Oh, positive. Agnes Gable? A positive. Henderson? We don't know, but his sister, Martha Henderson, who died in '88, her old hospital admission record lists her as AB positive. He paused. But here's something. Walter Finch. The name rang a faint bell from Mike's files. Finch ran the old gas station on the edge of town, near Croft's west boundary. Closed down in '92. Known associate of Henderson, they drank together sometimes at the now-defunct Creek Saloon. More importantly, Miller tapped the sheet. Finch was admitted to County General in November 1989 after a bar fight. Records list his blood type, AB negative. AB negative. Connected to Henderson. Near Croft's land. The land with the disputed deeds. The land near the creek bends where the specific stones were found. Finch. The pieces clicked with ominous force. Flashback. Mike's journal entry. Dated October 15, 1990. Eleanor Shaw finally opened up. Terrified. Said she'd found land transfer records Croft's grandfather signed under duress. Witnessed by a Finch ancestor. Said the current Finch, Walter, bragged about it when drunk once. Thinks Croft knows she knows. Also, she saw Finch near Whisper Creek the night before the second victim was found. Argued with Croft. Something about payment and keeping quiet. Need to lean on Finch. Weak link. Finch. The weak link Mike planned to pressure. And Finch had AB negative blood. The blood on Mike's badge. Found hidden in Henderson's basement. Henderson, who drank with Finch. Who called Briggs the day after Mike vanished. Where's Walter Finch now? I asked, the live wire buzzing louder. Died. 1995. Car accident. Single vehicle. Ran off Old Mill Road into Whisper Creek. Miller's voice was flat. Ruled an accident. Drunk driving. Convenient. Too convenient. Like Henderson dying just last year before the demolition. The pattern screamed cover up. Finch was silenced after Mike vanished? Or after he served his purpose? Was he the one bleeding in Henderson's basement? Did Mike confront him there? Did Henderson help finish the job? And where did Briggs fit in? The orchestrator? The cleaner? Present day. Gable's Antiques and Curios, later morning. This time, I didn't wait for Agnes Gable's brittle welcome. I pushed past the bone chime bell, the dust motes swirling angrily in my wake. She was at her ledger desk, but her head snapped up, those obsidian eyes sharp with something beyond detachment. Annoyance, maybe a flicker of fear. Agent Vance. I am busy. Walter Finch, Ms. Gable. I cut her off, placing a copy of the old gas station photo from Mike's file on her ledger, right over the meticulous script. AB negative blood type. Drank with Henderson. Argued with Croft near the creek before murder. Died conveniently after Stewart vanished. You deal in history. In curiosities. What do you know about him? And about these? I slammed one of the smooth river stones from her display down beside the photo. She flinched, a tiny, brittle movement. Her gaze darted between the photo and the stone, then up to my face. The carefully constructed wall of indifference cracked. Finch, she spat the name like a bad taste. A loudmouth. A drunkard. Trouble. Trouble for who? Croft? Because he knew about the fraudulent land deals his ancestor witnessed? Eleanor Shaw found proof. Finch knew. And Mike Stewart was closing in. What happened on November 4th, 1990? Was Finch at Henderson's? Gable's knuckles whitened on her pen. I don't know anything about that day, she whispered, but her eyes betrayed her. They flickered involuntarily towards a specific section of her ledger, a page marked with a thin, faded red ribbon. The section detailing land transfers near Whisper Creek. Don't you? I pressed, leaning in, my voice low and hard. Because Henderson bought stones from you. Stones from the exact bend where the victims were found. The same bend Croft owns. The same bend where Finch argued with Croft. Folklore markers? Or something else? Payment? A ritual? What are they for, Ms. Gable? What secret was worth killing for people? Worth disappearing an FBI agent? Worth bleeding on his badge? Her breath hitched. She looked trapped, ancient, and terrified. Not of me. Of something else. Something older and darker than Cedar Falls. You don't understand, she rasped, her voice barely audible. It's not just land. It's balance. The stones, they were meant to appease. Croft's grandfather disturbed it. Dug where he shouldn't. Unleashed something. The killings, they started after his excavations. She pointed a trembling finger at the stone. Placing them, it was a plea. A desperate attempt to restore the balance Finch's ancestor broke by signing the false deeds. But it wasn't enough. It needed more. The air in the cluttered shop turned glacial. Appease? Unleashed? Mike thought it was a map, a boundary. Gable made it sound like a sacrifice. Eleanor Shaw? The others? Sacrifices? The word tasted like ash. Gable recoiled. No, not intentionally. But the anger, the hunger, it grew. Croft knew. Finch knew. They tried to contain it. Stewart, he was getting too close. Asking about the stones, the land, the deeds. He threatened the balance. Threatened to expose it all. Her eyes locked onto mine, filled with a desperate, haunted plea. Leave it, Agent Vance. Please. Some things, they should stay buried. For everyone's sake. Or the whispers, they won't just whisper anymore. It was a terrifying confirmation wrapped in superstitious dread. Croft and Finch weren't just covering up land fraud. They were entangled in something perceived as older, darker. And Mike stumbled right into the heart of it. Gable knew. She knew. And she was terrified. Present day, Whisper Creek, Croft's west boundary, late afternoon. The weight of Gable's words pressed down as Miller and I stood on the overgrown bank of Whisper Creek. The water murmured its endless secret. This was the bend, where Croft's land met the disputed parcels, where Finch was seen arguing, where the specific stones were gathered, where the victims were found. The air hummed with insects and the oppressive sense of being watched. Croft's estate loomed on the hill above, windows like dark, observing eyes. Appease what? Some kind of mountain curse? Miller muttered, kicking at the pebbly shore, clearly unnerved. Greed. Miller, I said, scanning the tree-line. Fear. Secrets. Call it what you want. Croft and Finch were involved in something they thought they could control with folklore and murder. Mike found out. I crouched, sifting through the smooth stones. So many looked identical to the ones left on the victims, the one found near the badge. My fingers closed around one, unnaturally cold even in the sun. I turned it over. Etched into the surface, faint but unmistakable, was a symbol. A crude circle intersected by a jagged line, identical to the rubbing Eleanor Shaw had found in the Croft ledger. The symbol Mike thought was a map marker. A twig snapped sharply in the woods behind us. We both spun, hands instinctively near our weapons. The dense pines offered only shifting shadows and deepening gloom as the sun dipped behind the mountains. Silence, thick and heavy, descended. Even the creek's whisper seemed to hush. Animal. Miller breathed, his voice tight. Maybe, I murmured, not believing it. The symbol on the stone felt like a key turning in a long-locked door. Finch's blood. Henderson's basement. Gable's terrified confession. Croft's warning. Briggs' threat. It was all converging here, at this bend in the creek, where the stones held more than geological history. Another rustle, closer this time. Deliberate. Then, a low, guttural sound, not an animal. A choked gasp? A muffled cry? It came from further downstream, near a cluster of large, moss-covered boulders half submerged in the water. Miller drew his sidearm. Agent. The rage, the grief, the weight of Mike's badge, all coalesced into a single, focused point. Cover me, I said, drawing my own Glock, the cold metal a familiar anchor in the gathering twilight. The whispers of the creek were drowned out by the pounding of my own heart. The past wasn't buried. It was here, and it was waiting. We moved silently towards the boulders, the smooth, etched stone clutched tightly in my left hand. The symbol felt like it was burning into my palm. Whatever Croft, Finch, Henderson, Briggs, and Gable had tried to bury or appease was rising. And this time, I wouldn't let it take anyone else. The confrontation wasn't just coming. It was already here, hiding in the shadows by the whispering water. The choked gasp from downstream, near the moss-slicked boulders, froze the blood in my veins. Not an animal. Human. Hurt. Dying. Miller's breath hitched beside me, his knuckles white on his service weapon. The fading light painted the creek in bruised purples and grays. The water's murmur suddenly sinister, a susurration of secrets too terrible to speak aloud. Police. Identify yourself. Miller's shout cracked the heavy silence, echoing unervingly off the looming boulders. No answer. Only the relentless whisper of the creek and the frantic thudding of my own heart. The cold, etched stone dug into my palm like an accusation. We advanced, weapons trained, boots crunching on the loose shale of the bank. The air hung thick with the scent of damp earth, decaying vegetation, and something else. Metallic. Sharp. Blood. Rounding the largest boulder, we found the source of the sound. Not a victim. Not yet. But a scene that screamed violence. Sprayed across the dark, water-polished stone face was a fresh, arterial arc of crimson, stark against the green moss. Still wet. Gleaming. Below it, churned mud and flattened reeds showed signs of a struggle. Deep gouges in the earth, as if someone had been dragged. And there, partially submerged in the shallows, was a single, heavy-duty work boot. Leather, scuffed, caked in mud, and spattered with the same dark blood. Miller swore softly, holstering his weapon to snap photos with his phone, the flash stark and jarring in the gloom. I crouched, careful not to disturb the scene, my Glock still scanning the dense tree line. No movement. Whoever had been here was gone, leaving only this brutal signature. AB negative. Miller breathed, pulling out evidence bags with trembling hands. Lab will confirm, I said, my voice tight. But the timing, the symbol on the stone in my hand felt like ice. Gable's terrified words, the hunger, it grew, echoed horribly. Was this another sacrifice? Or a cleanup? Bag the boot. Carefully. Tread pattern could be gold. Flashback, Henderson's basement, imagined. The dirt floor, cold and damp. Mike, backed into the corner, badge ripped from his jacket in the struggle. Finch, bleeding heavily from a wound. AB negative blood spurting, staining the metal. Henderson, panicked, grabbing burlap sacks, shoving the damning evidence deep into the crevice. The boot, whose boot tread stamped in the disturbed dirt. Briggs? Croft's. The boot tread. If it matched prints at Henderson's basement or elsewhere. It was a tangible link, a physical signature left behind in the panic of violence. My phone buzzed violently. Unknown number. Instinct screamed don't answer, but duty overrode fear. Vance. Agent Vance. Deputy Miller with you? It was Sheriff Briggs' voice, clipped, tense, devoid of its usual gravelly control. Sheriff, we're busy. My eyes never left the tree line. Miller froze, boot halfway into the bag. I know where you are, Briggs stated, no question. Near Croft's West Bend. By the big boulders. My patrol saw your vehicle. What did you find? The demand was urgent, laced with something fear? Or fury? Potential crime scene, Sheriff. Fresh blood. Signs of a struggle. One boot recovered. We're securing it. I deliberately kept it vague, baiting him. Silence. Then, a sharp intake of breath. Boot? Describe it. Why, Sheriff? Know someone missing a boot? The challenge hung in the air, crackling over the line. The emotional impact was visceral. The man who threatened me yesterday, The man who likely covered up Mike's murder, now practically panting down the phone about evidence we just found. The betrayal wasn't just historical. It was unfolding in real time. "Listen, you arrogant Fed," Briggs hissed, his composure shattering. "You have no idea what you're messing with. That area, it's dangerous. Unstable ground. You need to back off. Now, secure what you have and get out. I'll send a unit." "Your concern is touching, Sheriff," I said coldly. "But we're federal. We'll handle it. We'll be sure to log your interest in the evidence." I hung up before he could respond. The message was clear. "We have something you don't want us to have." Miller sealed the bag, holding the blood-spattered boot like it was radioactive. He sounded scared. He sounded guilty. I corrected, holstering my weapon but keeping my hand near it. The shadows beneath the pines seemed to deepen, to coalesce. The creek's whisper sounded less like water and more like a low, hungry growl. He knew we found something specific. The boot spooked him. Means it matters. Means it connects. Headlights sliced through the gathering dusk, bouncing down the rough track leading to the creek bend. A Cedar Falls sheriff's SUV. Briggs hadn't waited. "Miller, get that boot and the photos back to the PD evidence locker. Now, lock it down. Don't let Briggs or anyone else near it. Go." I shoved the keys to our rental car at him. "But Agent, go." The urgency was primal. Briggs arriving here, now, with evidence this damning, it wasn't protocol. It was a threat. Miller hesitated only a second, then nodded grimly, clutching the evidence bag, and sprinted towards the car, disappearing into the gloom just as the sheriff's SUV skidded to a halt, spraying gravel. Briggs erupted from the driver's side, his face a mask of fury barely held in check. Another deputy, young and looking terrified, scrambled out the passenger side. Briggs' eyes immediately scanned the scene, zeroing in on the blood-spattered boulder, the churned mud, then locking onto me standing alone near the water's edge. "What the hell do you think you're doing, Vance?" he roared, stomping towards me. "I ordered you to secure and leave. This is an active area. Could be sinkholes. Trespassing on Croft land." "Preserving evidence, Sheriff," I said calmly, standing my ground, "of what appears to be a fresh assault or attempted murder. Federal jurisdiction applies. Where's your concern for the victim?" I gestured towards the blood. "AB negative, wouldn't you say? Just like the blood on Stewart's badge." Briggs flinched as if struck. His deputy paled further. "You don't know that. Could be animal. Could be anything. You're seeing ghosts, Vance. Stewart's poisoned your mind." He stepped closer, invading my space, his breath hot and angry. "Where's the boot?" "Miller took something." "Evidence is being processed," I stated flatly. "Chain of custody, Sheriff. You know the drill. Or have things been looser? Here in Cedar Falls?" The accusation hung heavy. His hand twitched near his own holster. The rage in his eyes was volcanic, tinged with a desperate fear. He knew. He knew the boot could sink him, connect him to Henderson's basement, to Finch, to Mike. The thin blue line was fraying into a noose. "Get off this land, Vance," he growled, his voice low and venomous. "Before you get hurt. Accidents happen near fast water, especially when people don't listen." He nodded towards the creek, its dark water swirling hungrily around the boulders. The threat was explicit now, backed by the weight of his badge and the desperation of a cornered animal. His deputy looked sick, staring at the blood on the rocks. The standoff crackled. The creek whispered its insidious song. The symbol on the stone in my pocket felt like a brand. Briggs wasn't just protecting the past. He was actively trying to bury the present. And he was willing to kill again. "Or what, Sheriff?" I asked, my voice dangerously soft. "You'll add another FBI agent to Cedar Falls's body count? Like you did Mike Stewart?" I held his gaze, the weight of 35 years of betrayal and lies solidifying into unyielding resolve. "I'm not Mike. And I'm not leaving. Not until everyone responsible for what happened in that basement, and what happened here tonight, is in cuffs. Starting with you." Briggs' face contorted. For a second, I thought he might draw. Then, with a guttural sound of pure fury, he spun on his heel. "Fine. Play your games. But you're digging your own grave. Deputy, secure this scene. Federal jurisdiction," he spat the words. "Make sure Agent Vance doesn't fall in." He stormed back to his SUV, leaving the terrified deputy staring at me and the blood-stained rocks. The message was clear. I was marked. The boot was the key, but Briggs knew where it was headed. The evidence locker wasn't safe. And the real predator wasn't just in the shadows anymore. He wore a badge and drove a marked car. As Briggs' taillights vanished down the track, I looked at the dark water swirling around the boulders. Gable's words slithered back. The appetite, it grew. The hunger wasn't just metaphorical. It was here, in the violence, in the corruption, in the desperate lies. And I'd just thrown myself directly onto the menu. The hunt was on, but the prey had fangs. I needed to get to that boot before Briggs did. The truth, and my life, depended on it. Briggs' taillights vanished into the mountain gloom like the eyes of a retreating predator. The terrified deputy he'd left behind, Officer Dawes, shuffled nervously near the blood-stained boulder, casting furtive glances at me and the dark, whispering creek. The metallic tang of fresh blood hung heavy in the cooling air, a stark counterpoint to Gable's superstitious dread. Appetite. The word felt chillingly literal now. Secure the scene, Officer Dawes, I ordered, my voice cutting through his panic. Photograph everything. Bag samples of that blood, soil from the drag marks. Do it by the book. Federal book. I emphasized the jurisdiction, making it clear Briggs' authority ended here. Dawes nodded jerkily, pulling out his kit, his hands trembling. He was young, likely clean. A pawn in Briggs' game, scared but not yet corrupted. Hopefully. My phone buzzed. Miller. Agent. Made it back. Boots locked in the evidence safe. Briggs' master key won't open it. Only mine and yours now. State labs en route for the blood samples from the creek. ETA 20 minutes. And I ran the tread. My pulse hammered against my ribs. And it's a match. Perfect match. Miller's voice was tight with disbelief and triumph. To partial prints lifted from Henderson's basement dirt floor back in '90. Prints they never identified, because Sheriff Briggs personally ruled them inconsequential debris and had the samples destroyed in '91. But the original lift photos? They were misfiled. I found them buried in cold storage. The tread pattern? Unique. Heavy-duty lug sole, specific wear pattern on the left heel. And Agent Vance? That boot we just found. Left foot. The confirmation hit like a physical blow, followed by a surge of icy vindication. Briggs. On the scene in Henderson's basement the day Mike vanished. His boot print in the dirt where Mike's badge, smeared with Finch's AB negative blood, was hidden. He didn't just cover it up. He was there. He participated. He lied. For 35 years. The betrayal wasn't just professional. It was a fundamental rot at the core of Cedar Falls justice. Flashback? Briggs' testimony. 1990 disappearance inquiry. Briggs, calm, authoritative, I arrived at Henderson's around noon, responding to Agent Stewart's partner's concern. Place was empty. Car outside. No sign of struggle. Just gone. We searched the basement thoroughly. Nothing. Dirt floor was undisturbed. Just old junk. Investigator. No footprints? Trace? Briggs. Nothing useful. Dust, debris. Like I said, undisturbed. Undisturbed. A bald-faced lie. His own boot left damning evidence he later ordered destroyed. The emotional weight was crushing. Mike, trusting the local sheriff, walking into that basement, only to be met by the man sworn to protect the law, standing over Finch's bleeding body or Mike's own. The image was horrifying. Miller, listen carefully, I said, my voice low and urgent, turning away from Dawes. Briggs knows we have the boot. He knows it's the key. He'll come for it. He'll try to destroy it, or discredit it, or worse. Do not leave that evidence room. Do not open that safe for anyone but me or the state techs. Understood? Understood, Agent. I've got it. Miller's voice was steel now. Briggs' threat had forged his resolve. What about you? I'm paying a visit to Arthur Croft. If Briggs was the muscle and the cover-up, Croft is the money and the motive. Gable said Croft's grandfather disturbed something. Unleashed a hunger. I think it was greed, Miller. Greed for land. For whatever he thought was buried near Whisper Creek. And Croft inherited it. Finch knew about the fraud. Mike was uncovering it. Croft financed the silence. Briggs enforced it. Henderson provided the location. It's time Croft answered for it. Present day, Croft Estate gates, night. The imposing gates felt more like castle ramparts under the inky black sky. Security lights glared down, turning the manicured approach into a no-man's land. I didn't bother with the intercom. I stood directly in front of the main camera, held up my badge, and spoke clearly. Arthur Croft, FBI agent Sarah Vance. Open the gate. Now, or I will have federal marshals here within the hour with a warrant you won't enjoy. Silence. Then, with a low, angry buzz, the gates slowly swung open. A small victory. Croft wasn't inviting me in. He was calculating the lesser evil. The long driveway felt like a gauntlet. Motion sensors tracked my progress. Every shadow seemed to hold watching eyes. The mock Tudor mansion loomed ahead, a single light burning in a ground-floor room, a study, perhaps. The massive oak door opened before I reached it. Not Croft. A stern-faced man in a dark suit, private security. He wordlessly gestured me inside, his eyes scanning the darkness behind me. The interior was opulent, cold, smelling of old money and polish. He led me down a hushed corridor to a room lined with books and hunting trophies. Arthur Croft stood by a stone fireplace, a crystal tumbler of amber liquid in his hand. He didn't turn around immediately. Agent Vance. Persistent, aren't you? His voice was smooth, but tension vibrated beneath the surface. I believe I advised you to focus elsewhere. I found fresh blood tonight, Mr. Croft. AB negative. By the creek bend on your west boundary. Near the stones. The stones Henderson bought from Gable. The stones used on the victims. The stones meant to appease. I let the word hang. Sound familiar? He finally turned. His face was carefully composed, but his knuckles were white on the glass. I own a great deal of land, Agent. People trespass. Hunters. Kids. Accidents happen. Walter Finch had AB negative blood, Mr. Croft. He bled in Thomas Henderson's basement the day Mike Stewart vanished. We found the blood on Stewart's badge. And tonight, we found Sheriff Briggs' boot print at that same basement scene. A boot print he lied about, covered up, and tried to have destroyed. I took a step closer. A boot print that matches the tread on a blood-spattered boot recovered tonight from your creek bank, where a man was attacked, possibly killed. Croft's composure cracked. A flicker of raw fear, quickly masked by outrage. This is absurd. Slander. Briggs is the sheriff. Briggs is a murderer and a conspirator, I stated flatly. And you financed it. You financed the land fraud your grandfather committed. You financed the silence when Eleanor Shaw discovered it. You financed the appeasement when the killing started. You financed Briggs to clean up the mess when Mike Stewart got too close. Finch knew too much. Henderson provided the hole. Briggs provided the violence and the cover-up. And you? You provided the money and the motive. What did your grandfather dig up, Croft? What was worth all these lives? He slammed his tumbler down on the mantelpiece, liquor sloshing. You have no proof. Wild accusations. Stories from a hysterical old woman like Gable. We have the boot, Croft. Briggs' boot, covered in fresh AB negative blood. Found on your land. Linked directly to the basement where Mike Stewart was betrayed and where Walter Finch bled out. The state lab is testing the blood from the creek right now. If it matches Finch's type, I let the implications sink in. Your bot's silence is crumbling. Briggs is panicking. He'll turn on you to save himself. He'll tell us everything. Croft's face paled. The fear was back, stark and undeniable. The powerful landowner suddenly looked trapped, cornered by the consequences of generational greed. He opened his mouth, perhaps to threaten, perhaps to confess. My phone screamed an emergency alert. Miller. I answered instantly, putting it on speaker. Miller? Agent. State lab van just pulled up, but Briggs is here. He's here. He's demanding access to the evidence locker. Says it's a county security issue. He's got Dawes with him, and Dawes looks terrified. I've barred the door, but Miller's voice was high-pitched with panic. In the background, Briggs' roar was unmistakable. Miller, open this goddamn door. Federal overreach. That evidence is tainted. Open it now, or I'll breach it. Croft's eyes widened in genuine terror. Not of me. Of Briggs unhinged. Miller, do not open that door. I shouted. State techs are there. Let them witness this. I'm calling for backup. Hold the line. I ended the call, already dialing the Denver field office emergency line. Croft stared at me, his carefully constructed world collapsing in real time. The blood on the creek bank, the boot in the evidence locker, Briggs' frantic assault on the Cedar Falls PD, it was all converging. The past wasn't just whispering anymore, it was roaring. Your sheriff is about to commit federal felony assault to destroy evidence, Mr. Croft, I said, my voice cold as mountain ice. How deep does your silence go now? How much more blood is your balance worth? The phone rang in my ear as I connected to the Denver FO. The hunt was over. The predators were turning on each other. And in the Cedar Falls evidence locker, a bloodstained boot was about to bring down a 35-year empire of lies. I just had to make sure Miller survived Briggs' desperation long enough for backup to arrive. The climax wasn't coming. It was exploding. This is the end of first part of this story. Are you like it? Please subscribe, hit the like button, and share this video with your friend. Next and final part will be published very soon. Goodbye.